Fantastic Four First Steps, which, by the way, I think is a pretty stupid subtitle to a movie, has garnered a lot of interest and debate and fan contention due to the fact that they have had a mixed reception towards the announcement of characters that they will be including in the story, as well as the gender swapping of them. I'm not a huge fan of the Fantastic Four being taken and misused by Marvel, especially since it was Marvel's first family. Quite possibly one of the most prevalent superhero teams to have ever graced comic book pages in history. And knowing that the original Silver Surfer, Norrin Radd, is being passed up for a 1 or 2 time Shalla-Ba'al, it's really, really annoying to me to see this take on the story rather than the take that fans would have resonated with the most and the take that the majority of normies would have understood and resonated with the most as well. And instead of going with the character who has the most comic book history and the most background and the most lore to pull from, Norrin Radd, we're going with Shalla-Ba'al. Not the smartest move on this movie's part, on the director's part, on the actor's part, on the producer's part. If you're desperate to ruin your fan base and completely destroy any goodwill that you had going into this film, probably one of the best moves you could have made is gender swapping the Silver Surfer. And I know, it's not gender swap, it's actually a comic book character, but she had like one issue in an alternate universe where she was the Silver Surfer instead of Norrin Radd. And it's a reason why it wasn't as popular or successful as the original Silver Surfer, because it was just a gender-swapped version of the character from an alternate universe that no one actually genuinely cares about. So, let's go ahead and get into this. Here's the thing, not only is this an assertion wildly disingenuous, but it's also 100% untrue. That assertion being that Silver Surfer Shalla-Ba'al is proof of Fantastic Four First Steps is finally delivering the source material accuracy many critics have long demanded. However, as we can all understand, Norrin Radd is the source material for the Silver Surfer. Any deviation from that is a deviation from the source material. For the best example of this phenomena, look no further than the myriad of such comments and retweets made in response to the film's first official trailer, wherein Wolfman star Julia Garner made her debut appearance as the live-action Herald of Galactus. By the way, also, the CGI of her in this trailer was just terrible. We had a better-looking Silver Surfer in 2005, or 2007 or whatever it was, when the original Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer movie came out. It was a much better portrayal of what the Silver Surfer looked like just in that movie. And it was a really good-looking mixture of CGI and practical effects. And you get this movie where you're supposed to have Julia Garner playing Silver Surfer, and the CGI looks awful. And beyond it looking awful, there's no power behind her voice. It's just this wimpy, like, it's Sharon from HR asking to speak to you about a comment you made to your ethnic friend at work. Like, it's really stupid. Everything about it was stupid. One point in the comic, they had 2 surfers simultaneously, called the Twin Heralds. A lot of comic book casuals don't know that, though, so people are jumping the gun, again, crying woke, when it's actually part of the canon. Being that this is in the past, this is a post from Scion Storm. Being that this is in the past, I bet the female surfer dies somehow and the male one takes over, because at one point in the comic, they had 2 surfers simultaneously, called the Twin Heralds. And, Jeremy at Manabite, reactionary ragebait YouTubers are dusting off their MCU thumbnail templates because they've never read a comic and don't know who Shalla-Ba'al is. No, we know who Shalla-Ba'al is, and we know that there's a reason why she wasn't popular, because she wasn't the original Norrin Radd. Marvel Studios' Fantastic Four First Steps arrives in theaters July 25th. July 25th? Yeah, July 25th. All right. For people who are complaining about the female Silver Surfer, please read this link. She's been around for a while. This doesn't come This isn't some woke shit by Marvel. Tony Stark, I am Clemo, said, I am finally sold. And for people who are complaining about the female Silver Surfer, please read this. It's a picture of the male Silver Surfer in the background of the article that he's using to source this to. Oh, it's so funny. This is from I Am in Love. To the morons in the comments, pick up a dang comic and actually read it. Then you'd know that Shala and how she was in the other Silver Surfer, how she was the other Silver Surfer, you idiots. And it's not just the fans on social media, but also those who write for the entertainment media, with Collider, Game Rant, and CBR all recently having run stories attempting to claim that Shalla Ball's time with the Power Cosmic is actually well-established canon. Yet despite all the confidence with which this argument is regularly made, it is very obvious that those who make it have either never picked up a comic in their life or only learned about the whole of her history and that of the main Silver Surfer, her love for Norrin Radd, from various wiki entries. Yep, I've agreed on everything this article has spoken about so far. Norrin Radd is the original. Shala Baal was in it for like a couple of scenes, and then there was another one in I don't remember her name at all. She was very, very inconsequential and insignificant. Factually, these fans are correct in their assertions, as Shala Baal has been depicted as a Silver Surfer in a comic book long before she was chosen for Fantastic Four. However, what they fail to mention, likely as a result of having only learned of her existence as a trivia fact, is that not only is the Twin Herald from another universe, but also that the totality of her time in the whole amounts of comics is in the role amounts to 7 panels, and a feature appearance on an Alex Ross cover. Ooh, look at that. It's even less than I remembered it to be. It was about 7 panels worth of comic book space. That is just significantly less than I thought. I remembered it as like an issue or two. Maybe I'm getting it confused with the other female Silver Surfer, but that is just pathetic. Wow. Oof. 1997 miniseries, 3 of which consist of her and Norrin Radd appearing as bystanders to larger events, and eventually ends with her death at the hand of a Celestial. So she's in the comics for 7 panels, and then dies. Pretty insignificant. Shala Baal, Silver Surfer, appears in all 7 panels on a single cover across 2 issues of a nearly 30-year-old alternate universe miniseries before ultimately being killed. Yeah, that's pretty pathetic. If you expect me to have this thought that this is the main Silver Surfer or somehow she is of more value than the Norrin Radd Silver Surfer, you've got another thing coming. And as well as a lot of fans are saying you've got another thing coming, because this is not the Silver Surfer. This is a desperate attempt to justify having a female Silver Surfer instead of the male Silver Surfer by sourcing a name from comics book history that is, quite frankly, insignificant to the greater story. Here's a look at that page right there. There's 4 panels. This may be hard for younger readers to conceptualize, especially given how little has been done with him in recent years, but once upon a time, the Silver Surfer was considered one of Marvel's most popular characters. First flying on a comic book scenes from 1966 Fantastic Four Volume 1, number 48, the hero's moral philosophizing was a perfect fit for the era's anti-authoritarian question-everything attitude, while a specific Jack Kirby-created alien aesthetic appealed to America's growing sci-fi interests. Yep, it became a very, very popular character and a very powerful character. As such, rather than complaints against the Surfer's gender swapping being rooted in any sort of misogyny by ignorance or otherwise, most of them, admittedly not all, as some are unfortunately rooted in wanton hatred, and instead simply born from audiences being disappointed that they will not be seeing the version of the character they know best. That is not accurate. In other words, imagine if DC announced a new Batman movie featuring Nightwing, but rather than Dick Grayson, the person behind the mask would instead be Cheyenne Fremont, a woman who donned the identity for a total of 2 issues and never appeared in 5 more in 2006. Okay, I see what he was saying there. I thought he was quoting somebody else. Yes, that's actually absolutely correct. If you were to take Batman and replace him with, let's say, Batwoman, a character who is far less popular, far less engaging, and far less interesting than Batman, people probably wouldn't be so interested. If only we had a piece of evidence from entertainment history that would show us the result of doing such a wild and ridiculous thing. Oh wait, there was a CW show called The Batwoman that went on for 3 limpingly horrible seasons. And slowly but surely, I shouldn't even say slowly, very, very quickly burned itself up and was no more. Had the show canceled because it had an average viewership of less than 1 million people an episode, which is pretty pathetic. Yep, there's the female Nightwing. That means that she is absolutely 100% accurate to be portrayed as the only Nightwing, or the original Nightwing. Ultimately, there's nothing wrong with being excited for either Fantastic Four First Steps or the chance to see a female Silver Surfer. Personally, while I'm obviously very annoyed by Marvel's pandering with the Cosmic Hero, the first trailer did pique my interest in the film. That's the author of the article's opinion. Look at that awful, awful, awful CGI. It looks pretty terrible. It looks like it was rendered back in the early 2000s entirely in a computer-generated imaging system, rather than actually putting any effort into creating something real and genuine. If this does happen to have any practical effects, I wouldn't be surprised if they did what they do with Spider-Man in the MCU, and they have him wear a practical suit only for them to paint out all of the details that make the practical suit look real and tangible, thus making him look like a weird wombly-gombly character who doesn't really do anything in a genuine sense. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Marvel has been killing itself and burning itself on a pyre for far too long. It has been destroying its identity, it's been destroying its characters, it's been mocking the original source material, and it's been ruining the love and adoration that millions of fans have had for it for decades. And it's only gotten worse. The more that they have gotten involved in things like Disney or things that are politically advantageous, the more they have lost the interest of their fans, the more the fans have abandoned the stories, because they're no longer crafting and creating good, entertaining stories based off of these wild imaginations that they used to have, and creating amazing comic book stories that people can get invested in and lose themselves in and watch and enjoy and read and find pleasure in seeing their heroes save the day. Instead, what they do is they beat you over the head with some sort of message and some sort of pandering to an audience that does not engage in the content to begin with. And if the audience does engage with the content, it is at a much lower and much less successful engagement rate than the original fandom that made you popular to begin with. When you backstab the people who give you everything, don't be surprised if they start taking what they gave you back. Right? This is so simple. Don't be surprised if someone who gives you something takes it back when you stab him in the back. Don't be surprised. It's pretty simple stuff. Anyways, this has been a longer video than I intended it to be, but I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm probably going to cover a couple more aspects of this Fantastic Four First Steps movie as time goes on. As for now, I hope you have a great day and a great rest of the week.